Okay, greetings. Hoping I'm unmuted. Greetings and welcome to the Galley's Pan African Community News Update. Today's date is the 29th of October 2023. I'm Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu in the studio with Sister Oleander. Hopefully, she's there with us. You want to give a wave if you can see us? Yay! Okay. And we're here for a review of all the community related news over the past couple of weeks. So if you're watching live, please always remember you're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, like, share if you find this broadcast is useful. Now, as ever, I'm going to start, as we always do, with libations, where we remember those that have recently passed or any notable anniversaries. And so the first libation is to a man. Well, I was about to do a song, who's the man who rah, 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 Shaft. But actually, I'll be doing him a massive disservice. Unfortunately, we have recently lost the elder Richard Roundtree. He was best known for his role in the Shaft film franchise. He joined the ancestors aged 81. His passing came after a short battle with pancreatic cancer. He had his family by his side. Now, he's always been known for that particular role, which kind of comes through the blaxploitation era, and kind of like was really made him into a world famous actor at the age of 29. But for many of us, one of his best ever performances was actually in the groundbreaking series Roots. I can never forget him. So we remember Richard Roundtree. The next we remember goes out to an elder, and this is in memoriam, actually, to our ancestor queen, Mother Elder Jessica Huntley, who passed on the 30th of October in 2013. Now, Elder Huntley was born in Guyana. She came to the UK and met her husband, the amazing elder Eric Huntley, and together they were pioneers of African literature, publishing many titles, which made them an example and a role model for so many of us. I'm thinking primarily of Bogula Overture publications, which they formed in the 1960s, which showcased talent from fiction, non-fiction, poetry, children's literature. They worked with many authors, especially those that were often dismissed by mainstream publishers such as Lim Same, Valerie Bloom, and of course the awesome Linton Kwesi Johnson. But on top of that, we touched about the importance of bookshops in our community in the last broadcast. Well, one of the things they did was turn their home, which was in Ealing, into a space for political action, discussions, education, and eventually led to the creation of the Walter Rodney Bookshop. So we remember our ancestor Queen Mother, Elder Jessica Huntley. And that's it. And the last libation for this particular week goes to a man often known as the book liberator, and that's to the elder or ancestor Ras Seymour McLean. Now, he was a well-known advocate for the return of priceless Ethiopian artifacts and hundreds of books and manuscripts of Ethiopian history, which was stolen from the Ethiopian church during the British invasion of that African nation in 1868. He joined the ancestors in October 2014 after a short illness, but each year I'm blessed to get in contact with his daughter, Sister Zakia, who always tries to put on an event or some kind of program to honor him so we don't forget him. And so we're just doing that here as well. We remember Ras Seymour McLean. His work he's done so much work. His work has actually been chronicled in the 1981 television movie, The Book Liberators. So you can check out his history if you want to. It's based on his trial after he recovered several of the manuscripts from the British Museum. And he was, taken out of circulation by the British state for, I think it was around 9 months in Her Majesty's. He was a hero. He was an amazing advocate for our community, and we remember. Okay, so you are watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. Of course, if you're here with us live, you're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share. If you find this broadcast useful, you can also make a comment. Sister Oleander is here with us. So, please don't feel shy. Let us know you can see us and hear us okay. And actually make a contribution how you'd like to the program. It's your program. The next section is going to be looking at domestic politics that affects our community. So the first story is one about how the city is claiming to confront the case for slavery reparations. And this comes on the heels of the reparation conference that took place at a friend's house in Euston last weekend. Now, what we now know is that the Bank of England, which has already apologized for its involvement in Ma'afa, and is currently running an exhibition on the subject, and you can see it in the image on the screen. It's actually an excellent exhibition, and if you get a chance to go down there, I'd recommend that you go on one of the tours with the curator, because it's a really in-depth and very interesting exhibition. But you kind of need to be guided through to understand exactly how the links were forged. Well, Lloyd's of London, which is the world's largest insurance market, is actually now preparing to reject the case to make direct reparations or make compensations. I think I make this point a lot of times. We often mistake compensation for reparations, but Lloyd's is actually saying that it was likely, I should say, we haven't got complete confirmation, but it's looking really likely, so they're going to reject any case to pay direct compensation to the descendants of enslaved Africans whose transport it actually insured. Now, we know this because there's been some research to better understand its role in African enslavement, which was conducted with the Johns Hopkins University in the US. So what Lloyd's looks like they're planning to do is to fund diversity initiatives aimed at tackling racial inequality. I think we've heard this kind of approach before, where they put it into a fund, and it's got nothing to do really with Ma'afa, because there's this whole idea that racial inequality is the only way that you can address this. When obviously they should be doing that anyway. And so that's not reparatory justice. That's just doing business as usual. Anyway, it's understood that Lloyd's has struggled to identify who it would directly pay compensation to if it had gone around that route. And that's another misnomer. But that's the excuse that's been given. And I think this is all, we've got to understand the context of this. This has all been done in the context that there are formal letters being prepared by national reparation commissions in the Caribbean who are ready to put the case to institutions, which would include Lloyd's, by the end of the year. So, we'll keep our eye on this topic and keep you informed as and when we hear about new developments. Now, the next story is related. It's on the same theme. And again, I think that a lot of this is happening because of the work that's taking place in the UK, around the Caribbean and the Americas on the topic of reparations. And this time, what we're seeing is that the Anglican Agency has pledged £7 million for what they call slavery reparations in Barbados. Now, this Anglican Agency is actually called United Society Partners in the Gospel. I think it was United Society Propagation of the Gospel. Initially, they changed the acronym to mean something else. And they're Anglican, what they call mission agency, based in the UK. And they clearly profited from the enslavement of our ancestors. They're in charge of managing the affairs of the Codrington estate. And for those of you who are aware of the history of Ma'afa, you'll know the heinous crimes that were committed under the name of Codrington estate. It's now called the Codrington Trust. And it's expected that this £7 million will do work such as community engagement, historical research and education, family research, and kind of like looking at burial grounds, etc. So some of it looks like it's reparation focused. The rest of it looks like it's just what they should be doing if they're an ethical organization. But this is, again, a development based on the fact that there's a lot of pressure coming from institutional actors in the Caribbean. We're not hearing much from the grassroots on this. It doesn't mean they're not talking, as you'll find. If you went to the reparations conference last weekend, you'll notice that there are many grassroots activists, not just in the UK, but across the Americas and the Caribbean, who have strong opinions on this. But their voices seem to be hijacked and silenced by some of our institutional actors. And so what's happening is that these organizations are choosing to talk to the more friendly, the more established, I don't want to say experts, because some of them are experts, but voices on this particular topic. I'm not quite happy with the way that's going, but it's good that the discussion is continuing. Okay, so this is a really interesting story. It's not just, often when we talk about enslavement, we tend to focus on the UK, or on England, I should say, not just the UK. But in Cameroon, we're having a discussion about African artists who have been invited to decolonize the work in the National Art Collection. And this is a new project that's come as part of the library's anti-racist project. And there's now 4 artists, Joshua Doncourt, Jasmine Violet Mefika, Jean Samuel, and Dr. Adiola Dewis. I'm sorry if I mangled their names, but they've all received a commission to create new works of art in response to its existing collections, whilst facing some very difficult or challenging aspects of history. So I'm a bit wary that there might be this kind of like retain and explain approach, which they sometimes, we see institutions use, where they don't really go far enough, and they kind of use our art to kind of like pretty up some of the things that they should really be removing. But I don't know in this particular case. It's good that we're seeing these artists being commissioned to do this work. I'm not sure, and I won't be sure until whether it is decolonizing work, until we see what happens. But at least it's a piece of work that's happening in Cameroon, and we have to be thankful for that. And well, what's this one? This story is an amalgamation of several stories. Yes, I am going to report on the fact that our sister Belle Adi was barred from the British Museum. I don't know if it's a permanent barring, but I do know that she was seeking to hold a press conference on the museum grounds, which was calling for the return of our stolen artifacts. But she was met with opposition from security guards, who actually consulted 2 police officers as she tried to make a statement about the refusal of the museum to return these priceless artifacts back to where they belong. And on top of that, things like the Benin bronzes. Now, our sister Belle said that her office had tried to seek permission from the British Museum to have this conference there, but they didn't get back to her. So she just went ahead anyway. So, perhaps this is just a one-time barring for that, and she can still return. It's quite interesting that that would be the stance. I wish she was around when we went on our walk. She would have made a wonderful and principled addition to us when we were seeking restitution and justice from that institution. I did hear recently that Bonnie Greer has stepped down as well from the trustees. I'm tempted to share a little bit about that, because when Ligali did approach British Museum about this topic, there were some trustees like Bonnie Greer who refused to entertain our claim. So I am a little bit, there's more I could say on that, but I'm just saying it's like not all skin folk are kinfolk, and we have to be aware that sometimes people talk on our issues, but when they're in these certain positions, they're not our allies. Anyway, back onto the story about our sister Belle. She stated that she would actually like it if the Labour Party's official policy was that it apologises officially for Ma'afa and accept the truth, the entirety of what happened to our family. That's not its policy, as you know. Keir Starmer doesn't say anything of any substance without taking a poll from the British public first. And so, we don't know the Labour Party's all we know is that the Labour Party's current stand is the status quo. There is a comment from the MP, Clive Lewis, And he's actually said as well, almost, and I say almost, and I'll explain why, that he would like to see his party adopt an apology as an official policy. So he is backing our sister Bell on this, but he's added a caveat, which I find very disappointing. He's added that he'd like them to do it at some point in the future. And when I hear things like that, I get really annoyed, because it's like, well, when in the future? Like tomorrow, next week, next year, next decade, next century? We need these kind of things to happen now. So yeah, anyway, that's that story. Now, I don't really have much to say about this one. Charles has welcomed what people refer to as influential. Oops, I think I changed the slide. Has referred to as influential Black Britons into the House of Windsor at this reception during African History Month. You know, is this news? I'm not really sure it is really news. We know amongst the guests there was Valerie Amos and Patricia Scotland. I suspect many of you don't even know who they are, and perhaps there's a very good reason for that if you don't know who they are. Perhaps they're not doing or haven't done much for us. But either way, that's what happened. It was a lovely photo opportunity to present the House of Windsor as no longer hostile to diversity. And I suspect that none of the guests who were present were asked, where are you really from? No, I mean really, really from, during this session. So yeah, it's not really news. That's what took place. You know, I had to report on these things. And I think related to that story is a piece of review that's come out from a survey, which shows that at least half of Britons know little about British African history. In fact, they know so little about British African history that they can't name a single historical figure. So, I mean, no Ronaldo, no Samuel Coach Taylor. No, I mean, there's no one. There's just no one. Now, this survey revealed that while 75% of British adults who were surveyed acknowledged that they did not know very much or anything at all, that more than half, that's 53%, could not recall any historical figures, and only 7% could name around 4. Now, this research has been done, I think, in preparation for the launch of a book from our sister Atinike. I think I put the image up on the screen. You can see it. I haven't read the book, so I can't comment on whether it's going to be an entertainment list, because often these books are a list of entertainments in our history as opposed to those who have actually done things of note. What I will say, having not read that book, but having read the amazing book by our brother and elder Professor Hakeem Addy, that you do need to read African. I think it's called African and Caribbean History in the UK. I mean, this is amazing book. It's up for the Wolfson Prize. I think we've spoken about the challenges that he's faced with the university counselling, the only module in the UK dedicated to our history. And this is despite the fact that we know that we've been in the UK. I mean, and we know with DNA evidence, if you want to be really cold, that we've been here for 2,000 years at least, even though there's evidence that we've been here from 12,000 years ago. And the problem is that this survey reveals that most people in the UK thinks that we only arrived since Windrush, or at the most 200 years ago. So I thought I'd share that story with you as it's the last on this section. There's many people who can kind of help you understand the narratives. You can talk to Brother Quaker, who does the BTWSC. He's a historian in our community. There's Brother Tony Warner, who's another historian in our community with his Black History Walks. There's Robin Walker. There's Onyeka, who talks about Tudans. I mean, there's so many historians in our community who have done so much great work on this topic. It's just a pity that we're still in a position where more than half can't recall a single name. And what I might share one day is that a lot of those people as well, I fear, also come from our community. But that's another discussion for another day. Okay, so that's the end of that section. You are watching the Galley's Pan-African Community News Update. Welcome. If you're watching live, you can interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're still trying that for the next few broadcasts. There's no comments, but Sister Oleander is here with us. So if there's something you want to say, something you want to ask, or just want to say hi, let us know that we're going out. It's quite strange that we've not had any interaction at this stage. So we're not just talking out to the world with no one there. Let us know. Just drop us a line. That'd be great. And of course, one thing I always forget to say is don't forget to subscribe. You can like, you can share if you find this broadcast useful. But I'm going to go into the next section, which is a review of some general community-related news from around the UK. And this first story, if you picked up on me sighing my breath, it's about this apparently flabbergasted market trader who has decided that she's going to remove this ridiculous doll, which we know is a racist icon, after the council has told her to take it down. Now, her name Sarah Hughes, who runs the Smokers Corner at the Bolton Market. She reckoned that she didn't know it was racist, that she thought it was a good luck charm, and she's had it since she was a child. I mean, this is complete and utter nonsense, right? She said that she's never received complaints about the doll, and she claimed that she's regularly asked if it's up for sale. So, in some of her comments, it has never offended anyone. I know some people have asked to take them down, but, I didn't know it was racist. If someone said it was racist, well, I'd say, sorry, it isn't intended that way. I can't see how it's racist. It's not a racist statement. To me, they're positive. Now, when you hear people making quotes like that, you know that they're being provocative. You know quite clearly that they know that it's offensive, but they just don't care. Perhaps she was hoping to get a lot of publicity, so people would rush to her stall at Bolton Market. I loathe even discussing it because I don't like giving her any oxygen of publicity. But it's just as a reminder to us out there that there are still racists who are pretending that they have no intention to offend us, but yet they're doing everything they can do to provoke us. So I thought I'd share that story, but again, it's another non-story by a non-entity. This one, we've covered the story in the past. Very, very frustrating. It's a story about a racist who finally he was caught, who vandalized the plaque to David Oluwale. I don't know if you remember, and he's not the only one who did this, but he's the one who's been caught as a particular racist. He vandalized it. His name's Palmer. He scribbled all over it and chucked it in the river. So he was caught by CCTV, I think. He was arrested, and finally he's been given a 12-month community order and ordered to pay £264 of cost. Now, for those of you who don't remember, David Oluwale, our ancestor, came to the UK in the 1960s, but he was targeted by the police in some ways because he was homeless, clearly because he was African, and it's a very Afrophobic society at that time, more so than now. And he had mental health challenges. And so these police officers, rather than seeing him as a vulnerable person to look after, they attacked, hounded, and he tragically was drowned in the River Leeds in 1969. He was chased by those police officers through the city streets, which led to his drowning. Now, what makes this notable was that his death led to the first ever prosecution of British police officers involved in the death of an African person. And so this plaque was put up a few years back. As I say, a few years, but I think it was last year actually, by the Leeds Civic Trust. I think we showed footage of the people coming around. It was poetry reading to commemorate and to remember what had happened to him. Some good news on top of this ridiculous news about people vandalizing the plaque is that there is going to be a new sculpture by the artist Yinka Shayambari, who's going to honor him, and that's going to be unveiled pretty soon. But just giving you some news of update, because we did talk about this case when it happened, and let's hope that once the plaque's up and once this sculpture's up, we're not going to see a repeat of racists trying to attack it and damage it. It's just pathetic. Okay, so the next story is about the Ministry of Justice. I mean, what can I say of this one? They're launching a recruitment drive to try and get more. I think they're trying to get 2,000 magistrates across the country, certainly from the African community and other minority ethnic communities. Statistics have revealed that around a third of magistrates in the capital are not European, and they're saying that they want to change that now. Applications will change, applications will change. Applications to become a magistrate will close on the 24th of November. I always wonder about these kind of initiatives. I don't like to be a recruitment soldier, but there is a need for us to be inside those systems if we're ethically minded, because often, I don't know if you heard the phrase magistrates' courts are police courts, but I grew up with that, and it's almost impossible to secure justice against corrupt police officers if you are tried in a magistrate's court. So it's actually really good if we have some diversity within that system, that criminals justice system. And that's what this campaign's for. I don't know why the shut-off is on the 24th of November. If they're trying to find 2,000 more magistrates, clearly, they're not going to reach the target. But hey, got to share the news, right? Yeah. Now, the headline, you read it, right? If you read the headline. This is the story of a mother who has been jailed for life for murdering her 11-week-old son. Her partner. So the mother's name is Olode Gonkalavis Taborda. I think that's how you pronounce it. And her partner, Muritala Alaima Imam, was also jailed. He's been jailed for 10 years. I don't know what else to say. I don't use the word evil very often. I find it very emotive. But when you learn that Malik's small body had 21 rib fractures, broken wrists, and his skull was also fractured in 2 places. What can I say? Apparently the injuries were indicative of shaking and what they call blunt impact trauma to his head. So we have evil amongst us as well. I've always tried to keep it real. I don't do wrong and strong. We have to police our own community as well, policing a society which hates us and institutes structural racism against us, remembering that this happens amongst us. I'm not going to say much more than this because it just makes me sick. Now, let me keep going. So I talk about structural racism just now, and I just want to let you know that there's been this. No, Toyin, let it go. Okay, so there's half a dozen models, African models, have declared that they're going to boycott the Melbourne Fashion Week that's taking place next week, or this week, if you know what I mean, Monday onwards, in response to multiple instances of racism that they've experienced across the Australian fashion industry. Now, these 13 models, some of who turned down offers to talk out on this and also to appear there, because some of them have felt they're going to be even more victimized if they speak up. Some have, but some haven't. Have shared a litany of experiences of racism they've faced, including claims that they have been paid significantly less than European models, that the N-word's been used by photographers, people talking derogatory about their hair, and all kinds of different things. Now, Melbourne Fashion Week, MFW, has the organizer that have come out and said that, look, the MFW program celebrates Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and diverse cultures. And what it does, it points at a number of initiatives aimed at First Nation designers and models. And I find it really interesting that that's their response to Afrophobia in the model industry, you see, because Australia just recently should be hanging its head in shame for turning down the referendum on providing a voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, Indigenous people in Australia. And so for the city of Melbourne to come and say, well, actually look at our initiatives for those very same communities as a way of showing how we're diverse and that we clearly wouldn't be Afrophobic is pathetic. And it's quite predictable, to be honest with you. But that's that story. We'll keep our eye on it. I did read the article, which, if you can find it online. It's got a litany of issues of things that they go through, and it's just ridiculous. The next story, I see I've got a typo in the slide. My apologies. Survey finds Afrophobia is pervasive and relentless and on the rise in Europe. Now, this probably doesn't come as a surprise to any of us living in Europe, especially those of us living in the UK. But it is interesting to take note. It's important to take note because this was a poll of almost 7,000 African people across 13 countries. And when you think about that, almost half of them have experienced Afrophobia and discrimination. You've got to pause for a second, because the respondents made it clear that they experienced Afrophobia in every single walk of life, from schools to the job market, from housing to health. Now, we're aware of what happens in the UK, and this is what this program does. Every 2 weeks, we share what's going on in the health, what's going on in education, what's going on in policing, in politics. But just because we're outside the EU or the political EU, of course, Britain is still in Europe, but because of Brexit, we don't actually hear about what's happening to our family in other countries. And this poll, which took place in 13 countries, was looking at Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Sweden. And like I said, over 45%, almost half, have experienced Afrophobia. And that's actually an increase of some almost 40% from the last time the poll was taken in 2016. Now, the worst, and if you look at the chart there, the worst levels of Afrophobia were recorded in Austria and Germany. And that's because right now you're seeing far-right parties on the rise. In Poland, it's quite interesting because they actually rejected a far-right party. So, let's hope that they start to go backwards. But it's important, I thought, just to share this and to understand that just because we are outside the EU, just because, we don't hear much about the EU because the toxic nature of Brexit and this little Englander mentality of the news, African people are still catching hell wherever we are. And really, I suppose to make that point really clear is to share the story about what's going on in Sudan right now. Now, last week I made something I don't normally do. I normally narrow our focus solely on what's happening to African people because we just don't have enough outlets to cover all the stories. But last week I spoke about some of the background of the Nakba and how that could have taken place in Uganda. And, I just kind of like alluded to the misery, the genocide that's being faced by Palestinians right now. And but one of the things I also want us to remember and to think about, and this is, nothing to do with trying to diminish and play whataboutery with Palestine. I was there in Waterloo at the protest. You might not hear me, see it. I don't have to always put things on Twitter to tell everyone my business. I can't stand oppression. I just can't stand it against any people. I'm angry about the attack that happened against those innocent people at the party. But right now the focus is on Palestine, and so I don't even want to talk about that because I start getting triggered, and then I have to start thinking about self-censoring because you know how this rapid media works. But when I talk about self-censoring, let me talk about something that is clearly censored, that we really don't have cognizant in our mind. And that's the case of the conflict in Sudan. Because right now, over 5.6 million people have been displaced, and that's both within and outside Sudan's national borders. There's been around 9,000 people killed who've lost their lives as a result of this conflict. And this conflict's been going, well, I think it was around April, the end of April. And you've got to remember that, I mean, I'm not going to give you a history lesson on why this is taking place, but you've got to remember that ever since the coup against President Omar al-Bashir in 2021, Sudan has been run by a council of generals. And these two men at the center of this particular dispute, General Dagalo and General Burhan, have been, using military power to try and seize control in Sudan. Now, I'm going to read this quote to you, and I'm not going to say a word. I just want you to listen to the quote, listen to who I tell you made the quote, and then apply it to the world issues that are also taking place somewhere else. You see, because the US has said that the shelling of civilian neighborhoods must cease immediately. And their exact words are, this is the exact word of the US, there is no acceptable military solution to this conflict. Victory by either side would exact an intolerable toll on the Sudanese people and their nation. Okay? No acceptable military solution. This is the US speaking, because the US is involved in this conflict. I'm not saying they caused it, but they're involved. And you were seeing the EU and the US all trying to kind of like, calm it down. But the reason I just thought I'd share it is because even though we are a Pan-African organization, and this program is focused on the issues in the UK, right now, media saturation would mean that you'd have no idea that over 5.6 million people have displaced and over 9,000 have been killed since April. Have no idea this is taking place. So, keep our eye on all the conflicts that are occurring. And don't be cowed into giving support wherever you feel you must give support. Because right now, we're in perilous times. Okay, so you are watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. My name is Brother Dr. Toyin Agbetu. I'm in the studio with Sister Oleander. You're relatively quiet. I don't think there's been, let me check with Sister Oleander. I mean, I don't think there's been any quotes or any comments. Has there been anything come through? Doesn't seem like there's been anything come through.
No, nothing's come through. Well, we do have some watchers. It's just that no one's written anything as yet.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Well, I'm glad to know that some of you are out there watching us live. Please feel free to interact. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you find this broadcast useful. So I'm going to keep going on. And the next section is going to look at some policing-related issues affecting...
Toyin, we do have a comment from Tafari saying, Tafari listening in as usual from the States. And also Tafari says, fixing some things in my children's room while tuning in.
Well, give thanks. And it's nice to know that our family in the States is still with us. And give thanks for sharing and letting us know that we're not just out in the ether and what they call it, and being shadow banned, even though I suspect that that's probably taking place regardless of what we do. But I'm going to go to the next section, which is looking at some of the policing related issues affecting our community around the UK. And I want to start with some good news, actually. I say good news, and then I'll give you part two. So part one of this story, which is the good news, and that's that PC Jonathan Clapham and PC Sam Franks were found guilty of having lied about smelling cannabis while they were searching our brother Dos Santos in West London in July 2020. That's during lockdown. Now, we've covered this story. It was going under a tribunal. The results are in. The panel chair said that their conduct of these officers had breached the standards of professional behaviour in respect to honesty and integrity, and this amounted to gross misconduct. And this being probably one of the first major tests of the Met's commitment to actually root out those officers who are corrupt and racist and Afrophobic, has actually amounted to the fact that they stay true to their words, because these officers have now been fired, have lost their jobs. I have to be careful when I say fired. It's quite complex because they're not technically fired, they're discharged or whatever it is. But both officers had been recognised now that they've been untruthful in their account. And yeah, this is actually good news. So that's part one of the story. I'm going to come back to this one afterwards. So you're seeing our sister Bianca and Ricardo in the image. But I'll come back to this because it's not quite finished there. So the next story we had this week was an interesting one. I say interesting one because this, again, I think I've mentioned the fact that there was a lot of stuff that took place during lockdown, a lot of police abuses that took place, and we don't know of all these stories. And one by one, these cases are coming out. And so there was a recent press launch at IPAD Centre. I had to declare conflict of interest. I'm one of the directors at the IPAD Empowerment Centre. And this was a press launch which revealed that a young man, teenage boy, who's been designated the title Child X, was knocked over by a police van and then arrested at gunpoint while his sister and he were playing with water pistols. Now, I don't have all the details of this story other than to know that there was from what I can gather, there was an undercover police officer who saw them playing with the water pistols, radioed in to say that there was some Africans running around with guns, and so the armed response unit turned up, and that's how the young boy was knocked off his bike, from what I can hear, and was face down to these guns. And from the accounts that we heard, it was traumatizing. It was horrific. The teenage boy was, literally, of course, he was traumatized. Now, the police has said it's apologized to the family because there was an investigation. The police, the Metropolitan Police, as it normally does, refers itself to IOPC. That's the Independent Office of Police Conduct. The IOPC in turn says, hey, well, Matt, you go and investigate yourself, which it did, and it cleared itself. And so we do know that the police has apologized, but it looks like now that the family have engaged a solicitor, and they're going to launch or request another investigation and try and get to the bottom of this. I don't know much more information than what I've just shared with you. We'll just have to keep our eye on this story, and we just hope that the young boy and his sister are able to have support to make sure that they are not, their well-being is taken care of. Yeah, what can I say? This happened in Hackney, by the way, which is the reason why. One of the reasons why the press launch took place in the IPAD Empowerment Centre.
Sorry, Toyin. Sorry, I'm just trying to get. Yeah, it just, I was going to say, I do believe it wasn't an undercover police officer. I think he was off-duty police officer.
Oh, off-duty, my bad. Thank you for the correction. You're right. Big difference. Yeah, it wasn't off-duty police. I don't know if it was uniform or whatever, and it wasn't an investigation. I think it was just an off-duty. Thank you, Sister Oleander. I should make that point quite clear. Okay, so this story, the next story, again, I did one for the magistrates. Now this one sounds really, really bizarre that it's coming out on here, but I'm going to share it. This is the story of a sister, Victoria Katilu, Ugandan sister, who joined Nottinghamshire Police 3 years ago as a police constable, and she has just become a detective after passing the training course. And I did struggle. I was a bit nervous about sharing this one because so I didn't put it in the positive news section because I wasn't quite sure about it. And you probably understand why I did choose to share it in the end when I tell you about the next story. But it's really important to understand that some of us have to be involved in these systems if we're going to dismantle them or to learn how to dismantle them. And by her own admission, our sister's journey to what she's described as a dream job was a rocky one, because during her 3 years as a police constable, she experienced some serious challenges. And she doesn't explain the racism, she doesn't explain the Afrophobic incidents, but it's clear that they were. In her case, she was quite lucky. She seems to have received some really good support from her colleagues, and so she decided to stay and try. And then she applied to become a detective, and she passed. And I had to say, good on her. If she has, if she's morally sound, if she's got integrity, sometimes we need us in those spaces at that level in particular. Not so much the officer on the beat. I'm not really interested in that, but those who are investigating crimes, who are doing detective work and can prevent us being fit up and set up. I think we need that there. Most of you who know me for long enough will know that as a child, I wanted to become a detective. Every Sunday I still watch an episode of Columbo. I've always wanted to catch bad people. I've always wanted to secure justice for those who are oppressed and those who are abused. So I just thought I'd share this story as well. It's a strange one. And, and I just, because I spoke from the magistrates as well, don't worry, I'm not going to make a habit of trying to recruit for the police or the criminal justice system. But this story came out because it's African History Month. It was shared with us by our research team, and I thought, yeah, why not? And the reason why I say, you'll understand why I thought I should share it. Sister Oleander, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I have a comment from David Williams saying, first time watching, this is such an important platform.
Oh, greetings. Thank you. Thank you for the kind comments. We try, we aim. It's your platform, it's everyone's platform. We're just hoping to share the news of what's taken part and what's occurred over the last couple of weeks in our community. So thank you for joining with us. Please, if you like, if you enjoy it, don't forget to share, to subscribe, and to like all those kind of social. I'm not very good with the social media stuff, so I had to rely on everyone else to share it and like it and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to continue on with the story, because I'm going to explain why I felt I should include this story, because I just spoke about our sisters and our brother who won their case after being stopped by the police. And I should say unjustly stopped by the police. And this is a story I just probably couldn't make up, because these two officers are being sacked for gross misconduct, right? So we know that they lied about smelling cannabis when they pulled out our brother Ricardo and sister Bianca. And they did this in front of their child. It was quite a traumatic scenario, and you can see the footage. I remember seeing it on Channel 4 News, and you can find it online. You've got to remember that this incident also had them hooked up against the wall, handcuffed and searched, weapons around, all that kind of stuff, right? So they were innocent. So these officers who have been caught lying, and it's clear now that they were caught lying, had lost their job. So what did the rest of the Metropolitan Police officers, not all of them, but what did a large group of Metropolitan Police officers do once these two officers, these corrupt police officers, were fired? Well, they launched a fundraiser. I kid you not. The Metropolitan Police officers, currently serving Metropolitan Police officers, found out that two of their colleagues were corrupt, were Afrophobic, that had lied to harass through a stop and search incident two innocent Olympic athletes. And they launched a fundraiser for them. Now, I think the fundraiser was something like 20 to 50,000. And right now, they've raised over £117,000 for those two corrupt police officers. Now, I think I've got 100,000. It's even higher than that. It's going up every day. Now, you might think, well, why are you reporting on this? How is this news? What's the point of that? Well, think about that, right? These officers were corrupt. I'll repeat it again. But serving police officers are supporting them. They're funding them. It would be like, and it probably happened behind closed doors. The officers that had murdered and raped those women, Sarah Everard, or took the snapshots of Bibi Henry and Nicholas Smalls. If there was a secret GoFundMe for them, and police officers kind of like, despite the fact they were corrupt and that they were outrageously morally decadent, supporting them. So I just thought I'd share this. And this is the reason why I'm saying that we need people of good conscience in those institutions. I couldn't do it. I know I can't. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do that. So if we're having officers who are saying, look, I had racism and I stuck through it, I got support and I passed the detective's exam and now I'm a detective and I'll because I've experienced this corruption in the police, I will whistleblow, or I will make sure that this corruption doesn't take place under my watch. We need more of that. I'm not sure about the magistrates. If we can get decent magistrates, that's great. But I just wanted to share that story. That's the part 2. Let me get off my soapbox and go to the next slide. In fact, it's the next section. Just as a reminder, you are watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. If you're watching live, you're welcome to interact with us through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. I'm in the studio with Sister Oleander, so you can please don't feel shy. If you want to share some comments, questions, feedback, please feel free to put something in the chat and we'll get round to sharing it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, like, share if you find this broadcast useful. But what we're going to do now is go through some of the health-related issues affecting our community across the UK. So the first story is of this young girl, aged 15, and she is in hospital suffering with septic shock after being bitten by ants in her infested council flat. Now, you'd think that this isn't something that could happen in UK, one of the 5th richest nations in the world, but yes, it does. Rayanne Toure and her mother, Jordan Griffith, they live in a 1-bedroom flat in Wandsworth, and their flat has been plagued by mold, water leaks, and mice, and now these tropical ants, which carry dangerous bacteria. And this has been a problem for years, absolute years. Now, Wandsworth Council spent 3 months, I think it was, trying to get rid of the ants because, the fact that a child 15 years ago is now hospitalized, and we know what happened to our young boy who died from mold. They're saying they're trying to get rid of it and they're going to keep giving it more and more treatments. But what's happened is that the mother has said, we're not going back to that flat. They put them in temporary space. We're not going back to that flat. We just don't want to go back to that flat. My daughter's in hospital and you want to send us back to that no. So, we'll keep watching this space and see how that develops. But this has taken place in Wandsworth, in London, UK. Whew. So, while we're talking about health, let me give you a reminder. We have a look back. For those of you who are unaware, there's a public inquiry into COVID right now. And one of the findings that's becoming very apparent is that the lack of ethnic diversity on the SAGE team has led to these disproportionate deaths that took place during the coronavirus. And I'm saying that what the epidemiologist Stephen Riley said and acknowledged was that there was very little ethnic diversity within the system when COVID hit. Now, I just want you to remember that during the pandemic, African and Asian people were disproportionately impacted by that virus. And even though the government at the time refused to acknowledge that there was, there was something, structural racism, there was something taking part or taking, something at play that was affecting us disproportionately. What many people knew was that if you're from an African or Asian background, you're more likely to be working frontline jobs, to be living in cramped conditions, like just explained with our young princess, and you're more likely to have higher levels of deprivation and worse health. And this led to more, the possibilities of worse outcomes if you contracted coronavirus. Now, SAGE, which was advising the government during the pandemic, and you probably remember these daily press briefings, was primarily made up of European male scientists. And this is what the epidemiologist Stephen Riley is reporting to the inquiry. He's also told the chair that the UK officially, its position at that time was that it did not consider structural racism in its pandemic planning documents. There was no mention of it. And so it's important to know that we have no idea what's going to happen with this inquest or inquiry, I should say, and how it's going to land. But we need to know that actually there are people coming out recognizing that this lack of diversity in trying to deal and address with something that was at that time an existential threat. There was no idea of a cure to everybody. That even in that worst moment, nobody decided to check into structural racism and see how it impacted on us. Okay, so the next story, which is a run-on from that one. Remembering all these stories are things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. This is of our Health Secretary, Stephen Barclay, who has written to NHS leaders claiming that diversity roles, anything that's looking into structural racism and people having those jobs, basically do not represent value for money, and that they shouldn't be paid. They shouldn't have anything allocated towards the topic, and the budget was better spent on patient care, as if we aren't part of those patients. It makes me sick whenever people say that. We used to hear that in sickle cell, when people forget that we are the patients, and if you're not dealing with structural racism, then what you're saying is that you don't care if we have a worse outcome. Now, Barclay, who's pictured, has said that these issues are everyone's responsibility, and they should be addressed through normal management processes rather than through external companies or dedicated roles within organizations. And this is the thing that really irritates me, because what happens is that normally institutions or organizations go to external companies or set up dedicated roles with people with specialist skills and expertise on the topic, specifically because normal management processes have failed spectacularly over decades. But no, that's not where this government's leadership decides. It's not their idea. Now, the Royal College of Nursing has stated that the discrimination faced by staff and patients alike is systemic. It perpetuates poor health outcomes for patients and impacts the well-being of staff, including pushing them out of the health service. This government and the next has to turn that around. So it's always good to have an insider view, and the Royal College of Nursing has always been consistent when it comes to highlighting these moral deficits. But yeah, this isn't something that just affects patients, it also affects staff as well. So yeah, let's move on to the next story. And this one is, I thought, close this section with a warning, I suppose. And this is a story about the menopause. And the menopause charity ambassador, Michelle Griffith-Robinson, who you can see in the image, has said that African women in particular, are suffering in silence. Now, our sister, who's described as 52-year-old premenopausal, says that she wants to grab every opportunity to deal with this, to highlight the challenges as World Menopause Day comes up. She says that African women are not only suffering in silence, but they do so because there's a taboo that we don't root our problems in public, and that's been the reasons why we don't seek help. And one of the things I didn't know, and I just learned this story, reading the backdrop on this, was that that many African women will feel the debilitating effects of the menopause 2 years earlier than European women. I didn't actually know that. I didn't know there was that disparity. You know, but this is one of the reasons why there is a World Menopause Day, and why she's saying that, you know, African women should stop suffering in silence. This is the end of this section, but I just also want to just add a note as well. I should have put a slide here as well. I just want to remind men as well about the dangers of prostate cancer. I just had some bad news, not about myself, but about a friend. I'm not going to share any details, but it just brought home to me that it's real, and it takes down even the strongest of us in our prime. So please don't ignore prostate cancer. Don't ignore that as well. Just the same way, support our sisters who are going through the menopause. Learn more about it. Break the taboo. Don't suffer in silence, because these things these ailments are leading to people having not just only a poor quality of life when some of these things are avoidable, but also leading to short life expectancies and people dying. And there's no point in what says here, suffering in silence. Please, you know, get a checkup. Please ask for help if you need it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move to the last part of our program now. We're a little over time. There's quite a lot of stories, if you've noticed. But this next section, which is probably my favorite part of the program, really, which is, well, really, where we look at some of the positive news relating to our community over the past few weeks. Now, just as a reminder, you're watching Legali's Pan-African Community News Update. If you're watching live, you can interact with us through Facebook, through YouTube, through Twitter. Sister Oleander's here with me, so you can make comments, you can ask questions, you can even make libations, and we'll read them out as well. And as ever, I'm starting to get better with the social media stuff. Well, I'm not better with it, but I'm getting better at reminding you to subscribe, to like it, and to share it if you find the broadcast useful. I don't ever have the time to go around and tweet and share all this sort of stuff. So we as an organisation rely on you, our supporters, to actually get the message out there. Whew, okay, so let's go on with some of the good news. Just Oleander.
Yeah, so it's just David Williams. I think he may have missed that slide you already showed, saying that there's a disgusting crowdfunding page which is used to support the 2 police officers sacked. Supporting the criminals so vile.
It is, and thank you for saying that. We did just share a slide on it. You might have just missed that, but it is vile, and it says much about British policing if serving police officers can put money into the pockets of those who have been exposed as corrupt. The tribunal didn't find that they were racist, even though we know that they were Afrophobic, and we know that was one of the factors that led to them being arrested. I have no doubt about that. But yeah, it says much about the fact that they can support them, and I think that's something that the Metropolitan Police needs to really reflect on. What does it say? It reminds me about what we spoke about in the last program about officers downing guns when they found out that they would be held accountable if they killed someone in the course of duty. Anyway, let me continue with some good news. So the first story is one about our 83-year-old sister, or I say elder, Lydia Inner, who, inspired by a devastating blood disorder, decided to care for over 300 children. And now I'm sure you can probably understand that when I say a blood disorder, I'm referring to sickle cell. She recently received a Pride of Manchester Award because she not only looked after 300 children for over 2 decades in Manchester, she's also now founded her own orphanage back in Nigeria. I'm assuming Nigeria because she came from Nigeria. The news article just says Africa. It's always funny when news articles just say Africa, as if that's enough to explain, where her orphanage is. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous. But she came to the UK over 50 years ago to live with her husband and children, and she tragically lost 4 out of 10 of them. And it's very possible that this is from sickle cell. She had sickle cell trait, and I don't think she had awareness of the condition. So that's why the headline reads as it does. But despite that loss, she did still manage to foster and take care of over 300 children. And we salute her. The next story is about an Afrocentric doll shop, which is opening in London. And this is a really lovely story about a mother, Lola Ogundele, who, when her daughter Isabella was 4 years of age, searched far and wide for an African doll with natural hair for her child to play with, and deciding that, oh God, I can't find one anywhere, she decided to make her own, and that's what she's done. And now the mother and daughter duo, they've opened their first shop called Lola Love Dolls, and it's in Portobello Road in London. And just some positive news. It's just a reminder that when society doesn't cater for us and doesn't look after us and kind of like discriminates against us or doesn't see value in us, well, we recognize it in ourselves and always have the capabilities to do for self. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and there's not going to be a struggle. Sometimes finding finance and finding investment can be really off-putting, but it's a wonderful story, and I thought I'd share that one. And the next story is along a similar vein, and this is of a young man by the name of Osmond Gordon Vernon, and he recently received a National Lottery Young Heroes Award. And this is again another wonderful story. Now, he received this award last week or so, but this goes back to an older story when he was aged 14 around 10 years ago. And he joined a pilot project run by Battersea's Art Centre called The Agency, which was set up to help young people. Now, through this program, he secured £2,000 in funding, and he developed a board game called Life is What You Make It. Now, this is a game he based on his own experiences, and he decided he wanted to help young people. Remember, he's 14 years of age at this time. He wanted to help young people understand the consequences of making certain decisions. And, he wanted it to be plant a seed for positive social change. So since then, his game has been trialled in schools as part of their Key Stage 3 curriculum over the last 10 years. And he's also developed a new life-side version of the game for outdoor festivals, as well as workshops for schools in Wandsworth. And that's the reason why he's received this award. Again, it's just a wonderful story, just to remind you, don't give up hope, right? Don't ever give up hope. Our young people, the genius within them, and sometimes they just need that seed. They need that belief. Remember, he was 14 when he started this, and it was just £2,000. I say just £2,000, but to some organisations, that £2,000 is nothing. And can you imagine if all the creative geniuses in our community, all those young people who've been let down by the education system, who've been let down by a curriculum that says that they're worthless, left down by society that paints them all as villains and thugs and knife-wielding kind of monsters. Imagine if they just had a little investment in their future 10 years later, and look what he's achieved. Amazing.
Toyin, I have another comment from Virginia Spats. She says, Manchester Evening News does say Lydia Ina's orphanage is in Nigeria, although nothing more specific, which town, etc. Quick search from Virginia. Quick search from Virginia in the District of Columbia, US. I think Virginia's in Columbia, US.
Yes, she is. I remember joining her. Thank you for sharing the information and kind of and watching and supporting as well. Yes, she's doing some amazing work in the US as well. Her organization. We had a chat some time back again, so much appreciated. Yeah, unfortunately, what happens when we get the news reports, we can't check all of them. So sometimes it depends which newspaper, which sites we've seen, which will show all the details. So it's good to know that the orphanage is in Nigeria. That narrows it down to West Africa, which is a bit more helpful. Give thanks. Okay, and the next story is and again, this is the positive news side, and this is really uh, a story about Amanda Wilson, who is an author. She's put together, I say author, she's an editor in this particular case. She's put together a book about from 18 African head teachers who are making it clear that young people are, or they're, young people, pupils are crying out for teachers and head teachers that look like them. Now, this book, I haven't read it yet. It's available on Amazon. I did have a quick check. It's called Letters to a Young Generation. And these head teachers have described their experiences of being stereotyped, of working outside their comfort zones, and the pressures of senior management. And it's really important that it is senior management in this particular case. There's many stories. I'm not saying there's, we don't value teachers, but this particular initiative is actually aimed at trying to get those teachers to go beyond. Same way I was talking about that police constable deciding to be a detective. This is about teachers looking to become head teachers. And these letters, this book that she's put together of all these stories, is really just trying to nurture their leadership ambitions, because there's a massive underrepresentation of African head teachers in the sector, massive. And so that's what this book does. It puts those stories together, and it kind of like shows how they overcame many of these challenges. So yeah, we salute you. It's just another positive story to share. And this one, was another lovely surprise. I'd not heard about this one. This is a story about our sister Vivian Isibor, and she was diagnosed with ADHD, and speaks about how she felt really alone. And just like I was speaking about the stigma that comes with the menopause, which many women face, especially African women, she spoke about the issue about not being able to talk with her Nigerian family about her diagnosis. And this is something particular to African culture, where sometimes we stick to that policy about not talking our business outside. And so what happened is she had ADHD, but she didn't feel she could talk to her family about it. So she suffered alone initially, and then she decided, actually, I've got to do something about this. And so what she did is actually decide to set up a support group for women and non-binary people of African heritage with ADHD. And she's now the founder of a group called ADHD Babes. And this group, which started with just 3 members, now has over 170. I just think that's bloody amazing. It's just, people, often I'm talking about violence and crime against the police and abuse in the health sector and stuff. And of course, we pay taxes, but of course our blood and sweat has built this nation here. But, it's equally wonderful to hear that outside those systems, there are those of us that say, you know what, we don't have to be alone. And whilst we're working to make those systems representative, to dismantle the Afrophobic, the policies and the racism that exists amongst them, we are still capable of providing and building support groups where we just help those who are vulnerable because it's the right thing to do. I'm pretty sure that there's many challenges, and I wish I could do this program kind of like every day, because then we would have interviews with so many of these people in this sector who can share their stories. That's maybe a dream for another day, or maybe someone else can take that baton on. I wish I had the energy. I wish I could clone myself and do it. But speaking to the My London website, our sister Vivian said, I'm lucky that I work in mental health, and I was working in a college with children that have autism. I was relating a lot to how they described the children with autism. She uses the word kids with autism. And so I think that the experience she had working in that sector, she used it and put it, to good use. It's pretty much how the Black Panthers worked, when they went out and learned from the system and then came back to do for self. So yeah, I just wanted to share that amazing good news story.
I have a few comments. The first one from Virginia Spatz, again, just saying that you had a great chat and she's enjoying the show.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we did. We need to do a rematch of that, or rematch is the wrong word. We need to follow up on that, I think.
Yeah. And then I have another message from Mr. the 4-3 saying, as somebody on the autistic spectrum, I relate to Vivian's difficulty. This is wonderful news.
Oh, give thanks for that. And yes, it's always good when we provide the space for those who are left behind, who are left unsupported. So yes, thank you. Thank you for actually getting in contact today.
And then the last one so far is from Mr. 4-3. Pardon me, Dr. Toyin, but is there an email address where I can message you? I have 1 or 2 things I'd like to share.
No worries. You can always drop me an email at toyin@legali.org. It sometimes takes me a little while to get back, but I do see all my emails and I always respond. It's like I said, it may take me some time, but toyin@legali.org. And it'll be lovely to hear from you. So give thanks. Okay, and thank you for all of you for staying in touch and keeping us company during today's program. There's a few more stories before we close. This one again is another story about some entrepreneurs in our community, and this one is about a family-run bakery which decided to make sweet treats without sugar, and recognizing that many people of African heritage suffer from diabetes. These two young women, Taya Abdelmajid and Maya Haruna, they're cousins. They set up a ketogenic, friendly, sugar-free snack company. And they just wanted to counter the impact diabetes had on their family. And it's such a fun idea, right? You want to eat cakes, you can't eat cakes because of the sugar content and the health implications. And so they said, well, you know what? Let's make cakes that are friendly, that don't have that sugar content. And so their company, No Guilt Bakes, was launched in November 2019, and they're based in Hackney, which is just where I am right now, where me and Sister Oleander are, and they're providing products for those with a condition ever since. And it's just a wonderful story, right? It's good to know that they're still running. I think Sister Oleander and I saw them on one of these news programs. It's a shame that we only hear of these stories during African History Month, right? It's such a shame, because it'll make you think that for 11 months during the year that we're just doing nothing, that as a community that there are no entrepreneurs, that we're just in a slumber, just waiting to be woken up before we actually take care of ourselves. But no, we're active all year round, all of us, and often it's because we don't have the support, we don't have the marketing budgets. But with this little platform, even if we can just share and just bring these organizations and these networks a few more customers, a few more supporters, then that's the most we can do.
Okay. I have 2 more comments. Sorry.
That's okay. That's my bad.
Oh, okay. 2 more comments from David Williams. He says, does Legali have a donation page? I saw this on social media. And he says, would love to donate.
Well, give thanks. I think we do. We use the PayPal. It's a really frustrating situation because our website it's not down, but what's happened? It's been. I don't want to say hacked because I'm not sure, but ever since we were hacked and we used to face a lot of cyber attacks, we used to host the website ourselves, and then we for whatever reasons I'm not going to go into it, we had to move from our home, and so we launched it on another commercial company, so it's with GoDaddy now. And ever since it's been on GoDaddy, we've had problems. And what's happened now is that our SSL certificate, very technical, I'm so sorry about this, I'm a nerd, it's not working. And we've complained and we're told about it. So what happens if you go to the Legali website, your browser will say that this is an insecure site, it's dangerous, don't go to it. So we're hoping that they're going to resolve that within the next week or so. It's been almost a month now, and all the donation details were on. Well, I say were, they are on our website. So we will get that fixed, and I'll probably say, thank you for the kind of donations. Hold off until we get the website up and running again. But the biggest thing you could do right now is just subscribe and share this with anyone that you think might be useful. That's the same thing we ask for everyone right now. But yeah, thank you. Okay, the next story, if I can get the slides working. Is that up? Right, okay, yes, it is working. And this is the story about Melanin Magic, which is a London bookshop, which is dedicated to literature for African children. Now, this is an interesting career trajectory. So our sister, Kelly Jade Nichols, had a successful career in fashion. But then, for whatever reason, she said to herself, I'd like to create a space that my inner child would have loved seeing growing up. And so she decided to set up Melanin Magic in West Norwood, which is that space that she visualized. And it's a wonderful little bookshop. I think it was made out of, was it a derelict laundrette? And she converted it into this bookshop. And we just want to salute her. Like I said, it's a strange trajectory, right? And that's what I love about the stories that come in from my researchers every couple of weeks. I mean, it's amazing what people will do and are doing that we don't know about. And this is just our little opportunity to share a little bit more information on that. So thank you, Kelly Jade. We'd love to hear stories such as this. The next story is one about the Black Pounds Project. Now, I know there's the Black Pound, sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. The Black Pound Project in the UK, which has been running for quite a while, which is an amazing initiative. This one is actually running in Birmingham. And talking about trajectories, unusual trajectories, this is one where the playwright by the name of C.J. Lloyd Webley, in the image you can see at the top, he decided to run an initiative that supports small business owners. So what he does, he has a pop-up shop every now and then in different spaces, and it enables organizations to display their goods in Birmingham city centre. And it's really as simple as that. It started in 2020. I think it came out after the George Floyd massacre. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's one of the catalysts. But he continues to run this. The image you can see below is of one of the people who received support from the project. That's Shanti Anderson. Now, she was a former primary school teacher, and she set up a business, Artsy Party Brum, which was set up during the pandemic to help our community to use creativity as a form of therapy. I've never heard of that, and that just sounds amazing, right? So Artsy Brum, it's run by Ashanti, and she says that it was quite isolated to begin with, but organisations like this one, the Black Pounds Project, are essential. They help people to get their ideas off the ground and have a platform to showcase their works, and she's found it super helpful. So again, it's a simple story. It's a simple project. It's people helping each other. This time, kind of like having space in Birmingham city centre, and that leading to not just all commercial projects, but also projects which actually provide therapy. So I think that's the last of our stories on that. I mean, I'll give you the penultimate slide.
All right. I've just got a few things to say. But first of all, there's a message from David Williams saying, incredible. I believe that was about the Magic Bookshop.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, in terms of the Black Pound project, there is the Black Pound shop in Westfield, Stratford, and also Westfield, White City. And actually today, I went into John Lewis and they had a little pop-up in there. So that was really refreshing to see that, we have got organizations who are supporting our brothers and sisters who are in business. So yeah, just wanted to mention that.
No, that's amazing, because I thought that pop-up shop was only for a short space of time, the one in Stratford. So it's Brother Dean, isn't it? So it's good to know that he's still got it running. An
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
initiative. I think people can follow the organization on Twitter. But so
Mm,
right, so excellent. I think so. Today it was still running, and I know that they had in Westfield, in West London. So thank you
mm.
for sharing that. So it
Welcome.
looks like it's growing, not only just in London, but also in Birmingham. And here's
Mm.
hoping these initiatives go even further and further and get stronger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
Excellent. Now I'm going to close with a little bit of self promotion, I suppose. And this is of a project, something I do every year, and it's called an open classroom. And the reason why I'm sharing it this time is because I was at a reparations event yesterday, dropped by our sister Zaina Jem, who hosted this wonderful reparations discussion at the Marcus Garvey Museum in Tottenham. And while I was there, one of the delegates who was there spoke about attending an open classroom that I did, and I explained that I try and do it with every module that I teach. I'm a lecturer at University College London, for those of you who don't know, and one of the things I do is that in every single one of my modules, I have an open classroom which we host at the IDPAD Empowerment Centre in Hackney, where my students can meet members of the public and those who are interested in anthropology. And I deliver a lecture, and we have a discussion-based session. You don't need to do extensive work in preparation. I share a couple of readings for you to check out beforehand. And I'm doing one again this coming month in November, the 28th of November. It's between 9 and 11 a.m. It's this session's called Political Anthropology versus Urban Ethnography. It's not really a fight between the two, but I like to play around with those titles. So you are welcome to come. You'll have to register online. If you're watching this, a recording of this, you should be able to type in the link, the email link, not the email link, the link that's on the form, and then just put your details in there. I'm saying it here. It's the first time I've actually said it on this program. I normally don't do this program because we haven't been able to put out the Legally newsletters, and that's something I'm really a bit sad about. The Legally newsletter, which used to go out to around 10,000 members of Legally, unfortunately, it's just a time issue and resources. I just can't do it. That's why this program kind of replaces it. So it's easier to I say easier. It's probably just a different sideways shift to actually go live and do this rather than put together a newsletter. So that's why I say, please remember to share, like, tweet, whatever it is. But if you are interested in the open classroom, I'll try and make a post within a couple of weeks on my Facebook and Twitter pages. Please don't hold me to it. I've got a memory of a sieve sometimes. But you are welcome if you're interested in anthropology or ethnography. You want to know kind of like how it works in the real world. That's enough self-promotion. It's the first time I did it. It makes me cringe doing it. I'm going to move on. And before we do that,
Yeah, I have a message from David Williams saying, amazing, love to see the support from the Black Pounds Project.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and it is. We should all big it up as well. I'm just hoping it gets bigger and bigger and stronger. And I also remember as well, I did, while I'm talking about things I've done, I did an action. Well, I did a workshop with Radical Anthropology group who, if you are new to anthropology, again, you don't have to just come to my workshop. The Radical Anthropology workshop runs every Tuesday, I believe, at UCL. So my one runs in Hackney, but this one runs at UCL. You'll have to go online and find the Radical Anthropology group. It is a space for nerds. I did do one a couple of weeks ago on action anthropology, which is about making the discipline relevant in today's world and how we do that. Talked about soul tax. So there's always space, there's always things for us to do. And I know there's some other events going on as well, and I'll try and get a few of them out to you by the next program in a couple of weeks' time. But I'm going to move on because I know we've gone over time. This is supposed to be an hour-long program, and recently we seem to be extending them to an hour and a half. It is a challenge because that does mean that we'll have to cut out some of the stories, and I still haven't quite worked out where to cut out the stories. Do we cut out more positive ones? Do we cut out some of the more? I mean, it's a hard balance. Where do we go? We'd have to have cut out at least 10 stories to fit this in 1 hour, and that's a question I'm working out, how to do that. The other thing also I want to ask you to think about as well, and then we'll have to do this offline, is, and this is something myself, I've been speaking with Sister Oleander about this. I'm thinking about changing the day of the program. So we broadcast every second Sunday during term times. And I am considering changing the day to perhaps a Monday evening every 2 weeks. I don't know if that's going to be easier. It's going to be better. It could be a Friday evening. I'm not sure. But it would be interesting to get some feedback on that. So if you are on Twitter or you're on Facebook, or you've got a view on this, it'll just be good to have some ideas, or even if you want to send an email about, is a Sunday evening the best time? Or would a Monday evening be equally as good? I only say that because the Sunday evening is tricky, but at the same time, it means everyone's kind of at home. And the Monday evening, while it has its problems, it means I contain this work within the Monday to Friday window, which has its benefits for me, which means I can sleep over the weekend. But it's just something I'm putting out there for you to think about. We haven't made a decision yet, so I think that's it. As ever, I want to say thank you to Brother Colin and researchers, to the Galley supporters and our community. We will be back on the 12th of November. I don't know, Sister Oleander, if you want to say anything before we go.
The only thing I really want to say is, please not on a Friday.
Friday night is our film night. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I know. Perhaps not Friday. Maybe Monday. Let's try and stick with the Monday option. It's just that I know I teach on a Tuesday and a Thursday, which makes it impossible for me to do anything on that day. And on Wednesday, I have incessant meetings. So it means that Monday and Fridays are the only days. But I hear you on the Friday. I'm normally exhausted on a Friday evening. Monday. Okay, let's consider the Monday. The boss has spoken. Yes. Well, thank you for being with us. And yeah, as ever, all I can say is, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Please be careful, be mindful, and certainly during these times, do whatever you need to maintain your physical and mental well-being. I have a strong suspicion it's going to be a bumpy ride over the next 2 weeks. Ashe.
Ashe.